Question from the crowd today on the Heisman Trophy talk. There's nobody that's really set themselves apart from the field this year. Who do you think deserves the Heisman? Is it Trent Richardson? Is it Andrew Luck, who was, I guess, it was his trophy to lose up until a few weeks ago? Is it a guy like Case Keenum, who we see here at the University of Houston breaking all kinds of records, or Robert Griffin III? I mean, there's a number of guys that I think could make a strong case to win the Heisman this year.
I think the last three guys that you talked about, to me, are what should be the front runners at least. I think Andrew Luck, who I think is the front runner, and I think he's probably going to end up winning just by default. And I think it's going to go back to I think for whatever reason there's a little bit of a stigma on the Heisman Trophy, and people can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there is the fact that Peyton Manning was never a Heisman Trophy winner. I think in the fact that they've had so many busts in the NFL, you can say what you want, but I think people associated with the Heisman, they want that trophy to go to people who are going to at least be decent NFL players. They don't want any more Jason Whites. You know, they don't want you to win the Heisman, and then not even.
Well, Tebow did win though.
Yeah, exactly. And then you know, maybe be an H-back in 3 years. You know, kind of a thing.
Well, Matt and I were talking before the show. You know, it just seems like it's preordained that from the beginning of the season, Andrew Luck was going to win it. But in my book, Trent Richardson is the best player in college football right now. That guy is a running back that it takes three guys to bring him down.
He's a fantastic running back, and maybe he's hurt by the conference he plays in because the defenses are so good, but it doesn't seem to me like he's outdistanced himself from the rest of the field. Andrew Luck was the prohibitive favorite coming in this year. Everybody said if he comes back to school for another year, he's going to win the Heisman. He doesn't seem like he's taken the opportunity and established himself as a Heisman candidate winner.
Well, part of the problem is Stanford's really played in very few close games. They had a close game against USC. They got blown out by Oregon, and the rest of their games were essentially blowouts as well. So he hasn't had the quote-unquote Heisman moment. I mean, I almost bit my tongue off on Saturday when Vern Lundquist and Gary Danielson are talking about Richardson's Heisman moment on a 50-yard run during a blowout against Auburn. Really? That's your Heisman moment? And I really think the media has a huge part in dictating who's going to win the Heisman. They basically said on Saturday, if you don't vote for Andrew Luck or Trent Richardson, your vote doesn't count. That's essentially what they said, that those are the two guys that you have to vote for. And I just think, I mean, what do we want the Heisman Trophy to be? Do we want it to be the best player in college football? Do we want it to be the most valuable player in college football? Do we want it to be, I mean, how can you really have the best player in college football when legitimately the other side of the ball, the defense, never gets consideration? Because if you really want to talk about great players that make impactful plays, a guy like Tyrann Mathieu should be getting all sorts of consideration when you consider, and yeah, he had a little bit of a weed problem possibly, but
doesn't make him a bad player.
No, but in terms of impact players on the field, actual in games that matter, that guy's had as much of an impact as any. I just think if Robert Griffin was the starting quarterback at USC or Robert Griffin was the starting quarterback at Florida, you're not telling me he'd be right up there with those other guys?
That, to me, is the guy that's getting overlooked. With all due respect to the other guys.
David Maxwell, what is that quarterback? I mean,
that doesn't mean anything, though.
Xavier O'Brien, whatever. It was one of those David Jones. Was it David Jones from the Monkeys?
You can't combine trophies. You can't win two at the same time. It's hard that way.
I just feel the other guy too much.
Robert Griffin III, if anybody's had a Heisman moment, their win over Oklahoma was his Heisman moment. I mean, he led them to victory. A major
pass at the end of the game was unbelievable.
Well, he had a couple of them in the first game there against TCU, too.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's had the most Heisman moments, but because it's Baylor, in some ways, like Case Keenum at U of H, people don't think of them as deserving the national spotlight that is the Heisman
Let me tell you, U of H was garbage last year without Case Keenum. They were a 5-7 football team. I want to talk about value to a team. This year, without Case Keenum, they'd have I don't know if they'd have a losing record, but they wouldn't be like they are this year. I mean, that guy single-handedly is making that school $18.5 million this year.
But should it be, you raised a good question, should it be the guy who has the best year?
You think Matt's a Houston fan?
And LSU.